Hello, my name is Carl Holmgren, and this is my antique wheelbarrow flower display box. In this video I'm going to show step-by-step construction of this wheelbarrow. Wheel is constructed around an axle. This is a piece of broomstick that I've stripped paint off of. And we need to wrap the axle with 4 pieces of 2x2, or more accurately 1.5 by 1.5. To wrap this axle with 2x2s, we need to chamfer the inside corner of each of 4 pieces of 2x2, and then glue them together with outdoor glue. Chamfer the outside corners so we have an 8-sided hub. Then taper the hub from the center area where the spokes are down to each side, and then build up a wheel with segmented pieces keyed together with outdoor glue, 8 segments and 8 spokes. The other thing I'm going to do on this project is try and do it without a lot of fancy power tools. I'm going to use all the hand tools except for the saber saw and the electric drill, corded, and maybe the rechargeable, cordless. I'm just going to plane this whole thing so I can do all 4 pieces at the same time. And with a fairly coarse setting, plane knife, I'm just going to plane down 1 corner. Since this broomstick is about 1 inch in diameter, I'll need a 1 inch by 1 inch hole in the center when I glue these 2x2s together. So I'm going to plane off a chamfer here, approximately 1 inch in width. I need 4 8.5 inch pieces. I'm just going to set up a miter box and saw off 4 8.5 inch pieces from this 2x2. One pair. Glue on these 2 halves has dried, but as you can see, it appears that the dowel is too large. Center the dowel on one of the pieces. And mark this spoke shave and flatten the dowel between the marks. I want the dowel to remain round where it runs in the bearings at the ends of the handles. But we'll just take a spoke shave and flatten the dowel between the marks and use a chisel to clean up the flat. So by just removing a small amount with a smoke shave, I've got this so it fits very nicely and ready for glue. And just a small amount of glue on the 4 flat surfaces that I've created. Okay, the glue is dry on my axle hub assembly. Next step is to plane down chamfers on the 4 exterior corners. And I have calculated that about a 1 1/4 inch chamfer will leave about a 1 1/4 inch facet. 1 1/4 inch chamfer, 1 1/4 inch facet for 8 1 1/4 inch facets. But it doesn't take long with the hand plane. Checking from time to time to see if if you're working at a 45-degree angle. So, and I've got to go down a little more. Almost equal size faces on all 8 sides of the hub. Next, I want to mark off a 2-inch center section. So I'm going to go in 3 1/4 inches from each end. Now I said I want to taper from this. Leave this 2-inch space in the center of the axle intact and taper from there down to the 1-inch axle. I don't want to taper right down to the axle. I want to leave a little space. So I'm going to use a little 1/4 inch spacer block to mark this end of the taper and then do a line to follow right from the 2-inch mark, the 2-inch center mark, down to this mark. And I'm going to use a saber saw to follow that mark. And I'll keep going around until I have all 8 facets tapered. And while I have it clamped, repeat the procedure to saw the tapers on the other end. For the last couple of tapering cuts, I had some problems, as you might imagine, clamping the axle. So I added a clamp here to hold this spacer block down. It wanted to buckle upwards on me. To hold the axle while drilling the holes for the spokes, I'm going to make a couple of V-blocks so I can clamp it to the bench. I need to mark the center of each of these flat spots. Now I need to mark a 1/4 inch to the right on 4 of the flat spots and a 1/4 inch to the left on the other 4 flat spots. Because I'm going to drill alternate left and right for the spokes, so they're slightly staggered. Okay, I've got the axle clamped to the bench, and I'm using a Forstner, a 5/8 Forstner drill bit because we have 5/8 inch diameter spokes, and I put a tape marker here at 3/4 of an inch deep. And this first hole we're going to drill a 1/4 inch to the right of the center line. And since it's to the right of the center line, it'll angle ever so slightly toward the rim. So I'm going to angle the drill ever so slightly off center. Otherwise, try to drill perfectly vertically in this plane and angle slightly in this plane. Okay, I've drilled 4 holes to the right of center. Now I'm going to drill the alternate 4 holes to the left of center, and this time angling the drill so the spokes tilt inwards. Well, that completes the axle. Now we'll get started on the rim. I've made a slot in my miter box for 22.5 degrees. Half a 90 for 4-sided is 45. Half a 45 for 8-sided is 22.5 degrees. And I'm just going to put a stop block in here for making repeat cuts. So each of the segments are about 6 inches long on the outside. One piece, flip this over, and make another. Two down, 6 to go. This is a shooting board, and I'm going to use it to true up each of the pieces so I get a perfect fit. Shooting board here, I've got a block installed to cut an angle of 22.5 degrees. I can also cut 45 degrees, shoot 45, or remove these completely for 90 degrees. There's lots of good videos on building a shooting board. You need a plane iron just as sharp as you can get it. The secret to using a shooting board is to gradually push the work into the plane. So you take very light cuts. And end up with very fine shavings. And with a little bit of work, you'll eventually get perfect miters. Use a band clamp to tie this together. Okay, I'm satisfied with the miters. Now I'm going to make, out of scrap hardwood, a spacer to fit in the center, to temporarily fit in the center. So I have a point to which to set my compass for marking the outside and inside diameters of the rim. Okay, the hardboard sort of fits. Need to find the center. I'm going to improvise a compass from a scrap piece of 1/8 inch plywood. And the wheel will have a diameter of 14 inches, radius of 7, inside diameter 10 inches, radius of 5 inches. So I'll mark. Okay, now I can mark a circle with the 7-inch radius. And the 5-inch radius. Now, these segments are glued together with a key strip at each joint to reinforce each joint. So I'm also going to, at this time, mark the locations for making the saw cut into each one for the key strip. And also, while I've got it tied together, I'm going to cut out the inside diameter with the saber saw. Finally, before disassembling, I'm going to finish marking these notches for the locking keys. 3/4 of an inch for an overall length of 1.5 inches. We need to saw the sides of each notch in each end of each segment. And to help guide the saw, I need to mark some guidelines on the end of each segment. And then I'm just going to use the back saw to make 2 cuts, 3/4 of an inch deep. And then we'll use a quarter inch chisel to square off the inner end of each notch. Three-quarters. Before we make all the notches in the rim pieces, we need to make 8 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch by 1/4 inch thick keys to fit between the adjoining ring segments. And I'm just going to slice them off a piece of cedar 2x2. Cedar because it's not the strongest wood in the world, but because it's decay resistant. And I'm going to slice off the 1/4 inch thick piece here from with the saber saw. But before I can do that, I need to plane it down so I don't have the radius corners on the insert keys. Just check if I'm square. I'm using the fence that came with the saber saw. We need to plane this down to 1/4 inch thickness, and it's very close. Okay, exactly 1/4 inch. Okay, I've set up a stop block here together with the miter box so I can cut this strip into 1.5 inch length pieces. Double check. Excellent. 8 pieces. Seven. 3/4 of an inch protruding. One down. Before we assemble the wheel, I want to just ease this inside edge on both sides of the rim. So sharpen your chisel and pare it down towards the center from each side. When you're finished, a sanding block, a few minutes with a sanding block might help smooth over some of the chisel marks. I've numbered each segment 1 to 8, so we'll go back in the same alignment. Next step is to mark the center of each piece, corner to corner and side to side, because we need to drill a hole for the spoke. I'm using a 5/8 Forstner bit, again with a piece of tape to mark a 3/4 inch depth. Now I've lined them up, so I've numbered them sequentially 1, 2, 3, so on up to 8. And I've also put a little bit of an arrow on each one. Number 1 towards me, number 2 away from me, number 3 towards me, and so on. Because the spokes are slightly offset, I want to drill these holes ever so slightly angled. Number 1, I'll angle the drill towards me just very slightly. Number 2, I'll angle the drill away from me, again, just very slightly. The spokes should be 5 inches long, so take a couple of scrap pieces to test before you cut them. A couple of scrap pieces 5 inches long. You know what comes next, right? To dry assemble. I'm assembling the keys with the grain parallel to the grain in the rim pieces. The wheel has to be assembled with glue all in one job. I've found no easy way to do part of the job ahead of time. So we need good preparation. 8 spokes, 8 rim segments all laid out, 8 of the key pieces, 8 clamps, 16 clamping blocks, some plastic sheeting, a cheap brush to brush on the glue, and of course waterproof glue, the band clamp, and to help hold things together, a bar clamp. I'm going to start by gluing the spokes into the hub. Okay, at each joint I'm going to use a couple of glue blocks and a clamp. and hold things together, lightly clamped. Sandwiching blocks, and now as a last step I've got to use, because the glue has partially started to set, I've got to use the bar clamp to try and pull everything together. Now the glue is dried, I'm ready to use the saber saw to do the outside circumference of the wheel. Then use the chisel again to ease the sharp corner. Again, now this time working from the center to the outside of each piece. With the wheel pushed against a bench dog, take a few minutes and clean off the sides. Final step in construction of the wheel is to wrap the wheel with a steel tire, and I picked up these straps in the joist hanger department at the big box store. I'm just going to cut off this section. Nip off the sharp corners. I need to drill a second hole, so I have two nails holding the strap right at the end. I'm using some galvanized nails, ring shank, maybe a little longer than necessary, but it's what I have on hand. I'm just going to start nailing at about the center of one of the segments. About halfway around, in the middle of this rim piece, I'm going to cut off the strap. I cut off the first band at about halfway around the tire and started nailing on the second band, and it's just about complete. So now I can mark the length of the second band and cut it so it just about meets the end of the first. I just have to drill a couple of holes just trim off the sharp corners. And that completes the wheel.